Hmm. That's such an interesting way to think about it because I think when people are getting into business, we usually have like this set mindset of these are the things that I'm going to do or that I'm going to sell. And if it doesn't fit within those parameters, I'm not going to do it. But like there's also this beauty that comes from being a completely open book and being willing to like just listen to the customers and do what they're wanting from you.
Totally. And, people who walk into a business and with that mindset of this is what I'm willing to do, this is what I'm not willing to do, it's like you don't have the track record yet. You don't have customers. You don't have a business yet. So why are we creating all these stipulations about what we're willing and not willing to do? I would say look really hard at what is your goal here? Are you wanting to just create exactly the vision that you want? Or are you wanting to serve people and serve them in many areas and really make money?
Welcome to the Confident Mompreneur Podcast, where you can find solid advice along with warm guidance on motherhood, business, relationships, health, wellness, and everything you need to help add to your confidence and zest for life. And with interesting guests from all around the world, you'll hear real and relatable stories with impact and nuggets of wisdom to help you or the mompreneur meet the challenges of life with clarity and success. Now let's welcome your mompreneur host, Kyrie.
Well, welcome on today, Dylan. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
Absolutely. I was checking you out a little bit beforehand, and I just have to say, I love everything that you're doing with helping women really get started in the Etsy space. How long have you been doing that, and what has that looked like for you?
Thank you. Yeah, that has been, let's see, I've been teaching Etsy about 2 years and 4 months roughly. And before that, my background is all corporate e-commerce. And then I got into e-commerce myself, doing Etsy, Amazon, Shopify. And then the teaching has been really almost, yeah, 2 years and 4 months. Now we have a team of about 35 people doing it alongside me.
Wow, that is crazy. That's such a big like team to lead on such a cool and small business focused platform, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And we work with a lot of moms, women, people who maybe they have a corporate career and they are burned out. Maybe just people looking for another stream of income. So Etsy, yeah, doesn't discriminate.
Yeah, I love that. And that's exactly the type of people that tend to listen to this podcast is the moms that are trying to do it all and just make a little extra here or there, which is great. So tell me a little bit more about you, who you are, your family, all of the things.
Yeah, so I grew up in Minnesota on a farm, a horse farm, total farm girl. Went to school on the East Coast, studied business. I thought I wanted to get into like fashion journalism. Did like
Mhm.
a horrific internship with Marie with Marie Claire. That was like a nightmare.
Very
But
interesting.
yeah, got through that, and then got into corporate e-commerce. So the business side, not the journalism side of fashion. Was a buyer, worked for Zappos in Las Vegas, and then moved up to Seattle and worked for Zulily, and then married or met my husband, who was military. So I'm a military
Mm,
spouse. We got married, moved to San Diego, and it was really hard to find a job here. So I was like doing all these different side hustles. I was 25, almost 26. And I thought, oh no, like I was such a career girl. Had my career peaked, like
hmm
have I peaked? And I just felt really lost. So I was doing all these side hustles. Etsy was one of them. And once it started gaining traction, I just went all in on it.
That is so cool. Well, and I feel like, especially as a military spouse, it's kind of hard to get set in your career and then possibly like be moving and never knowing what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes we would move, like we'd be somewhere for 6 months. It's like, what am I gonna do? I have a baby. Like, how do I find childcare and then find a job? Maybe for like 3 months. Is that really realistic? I don't even feel like that's fair to an employer. And this is, pre-COVID, so it's mostly in person at that time.
Yeah. What was it look like moving from like a corporate space into kind of this entrepreneur space? Because it's very different. Like, even with all of your knowledge in the e-commerce space and things, there are just some things that are different as you get into business for yourself.
Yeah. I think what made the jump easier was in corporate. So when you're working in corporate e-commerce, you own a portfolio. So my portfolio, it was about $100 million, and it was footwear, apparel, accessories, and you kind of feel ownership over that category.
Hmm.
So in a sense, you are like a small business owner within the company, and you're responsible for all the metrics, the buying, the decisions, the risk calculations. And I basically had that kind of entrepreneurial role in corporate. And so it was much easier to just translate that into true entrepreneurship.
I love that. And that's kind of cool that you already had that sense of ownership over like a specific work that you were doing. So when you decided like, hey, I'm going to move into this space, how did you make that decision and how did you decide like what platforms you were going to use?
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I actually started eBay first because, it was like 2016. And I mean, yeah, you're on eBay. And I was even on,
Yeah.
I was on Craigslist too. I was trying to,
Really?
I was like, because I was doing other side hustles. I was dog walking and house sitting. So I was like throwing stuff on Facebook and Craigslist and then eBay for some of this. And then Etsy. I don't even know why I thought of Etsy, but I think I must have come to it on Pinterest or something and realized, okay, this could make sense. And it was free at the time, free to start. So low barrier to entry. And it wasn't, I didn't realize the potential for sure when I started.
That is, yeah. I feel like that's how most of it goes. Like we just find those like low barrier things to just get into and not really sure like what we're getting ourselves into.
Yeah. But then, especially after going on to Amazon and Shopify, like I would never recommend starting with anything except for Etsy just because of the customers they bring you. With Amazon, the fees are so high, the interface is a beast to really kind of understand and master. And then Shopify, a lot of people think, oh, I'll do some crafts, I'll create a website for it. Well, then you have no customers, no traffic, and the whole thing ends up being in vain. At least with Etsy, they do the work on the marketing to get you in front of people.
That's really good to know. And I guess it makes sense, when you have your own website, you have to like direct people to your specific website versus an Etsy where they can kind of browse through and they already have the customer base that's just like looking for whatever it is that you're selling there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of like the people I work with, I would say most of their revenues coming from Etsy. A lot of people think just a couple $100 a month. We actually have people who do $1 to $8 million a year on Etsy
That
alone.
is so crazy.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like I know Etsy really started out as like a small kind of artist and creators space and now it's grown to so much more. What are some of the things that you can sell, do sell, like all of these different Etsy sellers that you're working with?
Yeah. I mean, there's very little that you can't sell on Etsy, especially now with their new guidelines and categories that they launched on July 9th of this year. So digital products, spreadsheets, checklists, things you make in Canva, templates. You could also do, of course, physical products, handmade products, which is a lot of what most people think. You could curate gift baskets. You don't have to be crafty with anything. You could just buy things that are themed, put them in a box. It's a gift box. You don't have to, have any hand making skills. You can also do supplies where you're buying and reselling products that are for events or occasions. I actually have a student who sells fake Christmas trees right
Hmm.
now. Yeah, so it's essentially there's so many options. You can even sell your services on Etsy. So there's people who provide like resume writing services and anything you could put on Upwork or Fiverr, you could also do on Etsy.
So when you started out, what was it that you were selling on those platforms and like how did you decide what you were going to sell?
Yeah, so not well thought through at all.
Usually how it starts.
It was one thing, one listing, one product, and it was something that I made for my wedding. It was a letter J for my last name, like an initial, and then I put fake flowers all over it. It was constructed from Dollar Tree foam and toothpicks. to like make a letter J, and my husband like carved the foam with a knife. And um yeah, that was what I listed. And someone bought it. Took 2 months, but someone finally bought it, and they wanted a letter H. And when they bought it, I thought, oh no, like I can't send them like toothpick and foam. Like this, that's gonna be like the worst review ever, probably, if I did that. So we had to basically engineer this, reverse engineer. It's basically a letter with flowers on it. Where do we find maybe a wooden letter? And then we kind of shifted the actual product.
Interesting. So you kind of shifted products after it had already been technically sold and kind of re-engineered it from there.
Yeah. And I think it's weird, but it's like, did I not expect it to sell or something? Probably not if I just put that up there. But I'm kind of the person where it's like, put the food in the oven before it's preheated. That's my like motto for life. Like say yes, figure it out later. Yeah.
That is so funny. I feel like there's two types of people when it comes to business. The ones that do that, where they just like jump in 2 feet, in, don't test the water at all, just go straight in and figure things out as they get going. Or there's the ones that like overthink and overcomplicate everything, and then they never end up doing anything because they're always worried about the end product. I feel like the hardest part of entrepreneurship is kind of figuring out that like in between space where you're like doing the things, but also like trying to like test things out and figure things out as you're going too, and not just like jumping in and then having nowhere to swim to, if that makes
Totally.
sense.
Yeah, totally. My motto is like fail fast, because then you can iterate faster. And speed in decision making, like the speed of your decision making, that is something you can control. And then you get feedback faster. The quicker you can make decisions, right? And you always want to calculate the risk, of course. Like throwing something on Etsy, though, what's the risk? No one buys it. Like really?
Well, and
Did you?
especially when it was a free platform.
Yeah, right, right. So low risk. So speed of decisions, especially when there's little to no risk, like I feel like that's what you got to do.
Well, and then like you said, once you get into it, you can kind of problem solve and change things as you're going. And like you said, you can get feedback from the customers. Well, what did you like? What didn't you like? What should I change next time? Did you find that kind of as you went through those iterations of what you were producing, but also what you were selling?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it took 2 months to get one sale, but by the 2 months later, so month 4, we're making over $10,000 a month,
Well,
and it went back. So that 2 month time period from the first sale to 10K a month, that was constant feedback and listening to the customer and giving them exactly what they wanted. Can you do it in this size? Yes. And then figure it out later. Can you make a matching mobile, like a baby nursery mobile with that? Yes. That became our second product. So I just said yes, and then I'd figure it out later.
That's such an interesting way to think about it, because I think when people are getting into business, we usually have like this set mindset of these are the things that I'm going to do or that I'm going to sell. And if it doesn't fit within those parameters, I'm not going to do it. But like there's also this beauty that comes from being a completely open book and being willing to like just listen to the customers and do what they're wanting from you.
Totally. And, people who walk into a business and with that mindset of this is what I'm willing to do, this is what I'm not willing to do. It's like you don't have the track record yet. You don't have customers. You don't have a business yet. So why are we creating all these stipulations about what we're willing and not willing to do? I would say look really hard at what is your goal here? Are you wanting to just create exactly the vision that you want? Or are you wanting to serve people and serve them in many areas and really make money? Two different approaches, I would say. But yeah, I just I can't stand it when someone's like, I want to have a business, but I'm not willing to do this like list of 20 things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's really interesting, just like how you approached that. And obviously, because you approached it with such an open mindset, like you got valuable feedback from your customers, and then they also like, were able to grow very quickly from that.
Totally. And it's like, who's paying the bills? Who's paying your bills? Are you paying your own bills? Are you buying the product, or do you need these people? Like, you need these customers. So if you're not willing to listen to them, how are you going to make money from them?
Yeah, absolutely. So since those like first 4 months in the business, 2 months where you didn't get a single sale and then you got your single sale and then it kind of like launched you into this kind of platform and into understanding like where you wanted to go. How many reiterations have you gone through since then? And obviously now, like you do a completely other thing, which is now teaching others how to do this.
Yeah. So since then, we expanded the product mix significantly to there's probably like 20 different SKUs or products from those first two products, the mobile and the letters. And really through listening to the customers and looking at what they wanted. So that's kind of where the business went product wise. In terms of revenue, we got up to months that were over $50,000 a month. We, hired employees the last several years in the business. And that is really when I started teaching it over the last couple of years.
What was it like when you first got into it and you're like, I'm just gonna kind of do this as a side hustle, and then all of a sudden, within a couple of months, being like thrown into this as more of a full-time gig? And what was that like for you and your husband and your family?
Yeah, so the first like 6 months that I was on Etsy, I was still interviewing, like furiously, trying to get a job because I didn't think Etsy would be long term,
Right.
make some like quick money. But
Yeah.
I was interviewing, trying to get a job, and I was trying to get a job specifically with Petco headquarters. They're up in Poway, like a little north of me, and 10 months of interviewing there, trying to get a job. Finally got the job offer. But by that time, we'd been on Etsy doing 10K months for like, what, 3 months in a row. And then I accepted, yeah, but the job offer was great. It was like $110,000 a year. I was like 26. So I thought, oh, that's amazing. And I accepted the job offer. And I just felt so torn. But my parents were saying, Dylan, you know, you don't know enough yet. Just learn a little more before you really go all in on your business. And keep in mind, like they're entrepreneurs too. So like the fact that they were telling me, I did take that seriously. So accepted the job offer. It's December of like Christmas of 2016. I find out I'm pregnant and I'm like, that's it. I do not want to put my newborn in daycare when they're like, 6 weeks to 12 weeks old. I'm not doing this. So I said, all right, that's it. I'm going all in on Etsy. Gonna definitely, my goal is to exceed that income from Petco headquarters, that offer. And then that was like the only thing I was focused on. Yeah.
That is such a big move, though, to make, especially, having this kind of idea of, you know, a stability, which I always say that as like a funny thing because even when you're in a full-time, like regular job, it's never guaranteed either. So it's like this idea of stability, but like having that and then, like having a child. And I feel like sometimes that's what it takes for us to jump into these things is because we're like, we want that freedom that comes from entrepreneurship and that time to be able to spend with our kids and how it kind of forces you to like face those realities and determine what is actually important to you as you move forward.
Yeah. And what feels safe now, that might not be the right decision long term. So like what the next 6 months, sure, it'd be great to have this corporate job that sounds and looks good, but 2 years from now, when you have a 1-year-old, like, will you regret that decision? Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. It's scary to make that decision though, either way.
Either way. Yeah. But, you also have to remember like you have options, like you have good options. Okay. You have this option to be an entrepreneur. And some people aren't lucky enough to be able to take that risk. Like maybe they're the breadwinner or something, or they have more kids already. So it was a blessing to have the choice, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What are some of the things that you wish you knew before you jumped into it?
Wow. I would say during that like 10 months of job searching, I was doing all these side hustles. I was not going aggressively all in on one. So I was kind of, let's say I was doing four things. I was giving 25% effort to like four different things. And as a result, I'm seeing 25% of the results. And I'm going up against people who are going in 100% on that thing. How do I expect to get traction or momentum or take market share if I'm only giving, fourth of the effort? So I do recommend like, and I wish I would have just been a little more focused on like maybe one or two things, because if you're trying to do everything, you're not going to do any of it well.
That is such a good point. And I do feel like that's one of those hard things because, like you said, we sometimes just want to test the water and see what's going to work, but we don't truly know if it's going to work or not if we're not giving it that 100% effort.
Right. Yeah. Like if you test the water on 10 different things, I almost guarantee none of them will work. Whereas if you had just gone in on like one or two, right, that level of focus and energy, that is probably what it would take to make it work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you said when you started, you were kind of dabbling in like Shopify, Amazon, Etsy, like a whole bunch of platforms. Were you selling the same thing on all of those platforms so that while you were kind of spreading yourself out, you were still focused, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I actually took only my top selling products and took those on to Amazon. So just to keep it simple, because it's such a beast and there wasn't bandwidth to put everything there. And then on Shopify, you can sync it up really nicely with Etsy. So they had the same,
Very nice.
same. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to know. Any of those other tips that like maybe people that haven't been on those platforms should know about things that make it easier, like being able to link those accounts and sell in multiple places or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say definitely be ready to do some social media, but it doesn't have to be every platform, just focusing even on one. Again, it's the same thing with like not spreading your efforts so thin. Do one platform well to drive traffic. I recommend Facebook or Pinterest if you're going to do Etsy. Pinterest is so easy now, like really, it could be mindless and you could do Pinterest. And then, so that's definitely something, it'll just get you traction faster. And then don't overthink it. Like just throw up one product. You probably have something that you already use. Maybe it's a template or some type of a tool that you use. Maybe it's digital, or maybe it's something you made for your wedding that you still have and that you could sell. So just look at what's around you, what you already have, put that up first.
Yeah, such a good tip. Because I feel like, again, we sometimes overcomplicate things and feel like we have to start from brand new instead of starting with the things that we already have and use.
Totally. Yeah. Like if I had instead started a shop and thought, what should I make to sell? I would never have thought of something, that was probably even good or original. I probably would have just looked at what's on Etsy and copied it, which is not the way to win. Yeah.
That's such a good point because I do feel like we do that a lot, especially if we're getting into something new. It's like, well, how can I recreate something that somebody else has already done that's already successful instead of being more original with it?
Yeah, and it's a tough business model. I would hardly call it a business model because you're always chasing other people's success and there's no innovation or creativity. And if you're doing that, there's no way to really be unique and different. You're just trying to be like a knockoff or a copy of someone else.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit at the beginning about you kind of going towards Etsy a little bit more because they kind of have those established markets and marketing for you. But you also just talked a little bit about like focusing your marketing into one space. As a seller on Etsy, how do you approach marketing? What do you think is the most important pieces of doing your marketing in order to get that kind of already established market to your space?
Yeah. So SEO is really important. That's free, right? It just takes knowledge and skill, really. So SEO is extremely important. Without SEO, you're never going to get found on Etsy. You could be selling like, a $50,000 diamond for $1, and no one would find you and buy it if you didn't have SEO. So that's like everything. It's a non-negotiable. And then if you want to add like, some sprinkles on top or like a cherry on top, you could say then driving some external traffic with social media is only going to help you. So Facebook and Pinterest are two great ways to do that. But Pinterest is the long game. So you're not going to see results from that immediately. Really do it consistently, I would say for at least 6 to 12 months. But Facebook, you can see results from that very quickly within 24 hours. So I like that combination of both for that reason.
So for those who are like brand new to this online marketplace, what is SEO and like how do you implement it?
Yeah, so SEO is search engine optimization. So it's basically keywords that you need to have in specific places in your shop and in your listings in order to even get found. Because just like Google, Etsy is a search engine. So people type in keywords to the search bar, and we want your results to show up where they're relevant, your listings to show up. So if you don't have the keywords there, you're not even going to be caught in that filter of those keywords. So that is how you get free traffic from Etsy users. And then there's many different places you need it. We actually found that Etsy sellers really struggle with SEO. Maybe they don't have time. It just takes so long to try to learn it. So what we did over the last 8 months, we actually created a software called Etsio, etseo.com, and it does your SEO for you.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, and again, I think everything that you're talking about doing as like a business owner and then add on top of that, like having a family and things, it all just takes so much time and energy and effort. And those like small time saving like helpers are huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And really looking at where are you spending your time? If you don't know what you're doing, sometimes it's really unproductive. Like you could take an hour trying to make a listing. So this does it in about a minute for you. You just upload the picture and then it AI looks at everything and gives you every part of your listing.
That
So
is so cool. Well, and I
yeah.
think as a person who, obviously like 90% of our shopping nowadays is online, I feel like. And like when I go into shopping, I've like got this solid idea of like whatever it is that I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for a red wedding decorations, like that's what I'm going to type in. And if you don't have those specific words, it's not going to pop in to my feed for me to even look through and be able to see and choose from.
Totally. And the problem that is Etsy sellers, we're thinking about our products so much. We're not putting SEO that is customer centric. So we want to have SEO that is actually what the customer is searching. And your example is great, red wedding decorations, right? Whereas maybe I'm selling like ribbon, let's say like ribbon centerpiece, and maybe it's like 5/8 inch ribbon. And if I'm putting in SEO like 5/8 inch, lipstick red or whatever, like specific shade of red, satin ribbon with chiffon trim centerpiece, like no one's typing that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that might be the exact thing that I'm looking for, but I usually, as a customer, don't know those specific technical details of what it is that I'm looking for. I just know I want a red, centerpiece for my wedding.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So customers are more solution focused. And what is the purpose or the utility of that product, right? It's okay, it's a wedding decoration and we need red. That's what they're thinking. They're not thinking about the details that you, as the creator, know and you're thinking are important because you created that thing. It's just two different ways of searching. And we are making assumptions as sellers about what someone is searching that aren't even true.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes for any, small business owner. It doesn't even matter if you're, selling online products or whatever, but like just switching our mindsets from a, owner creator mindset to a customer focused mindset when we're working on these marketing and how we're going to sell to our customers. What is
Totally.
it that they're wanting to get out of this at the end of it?
Yeah. What is the value or the result or the outcome they're trying to achieve versus the nitty-gritty details of how that looks or how to get there. They're just much more focused on the solution. Yeah.
No, such a good point and such a good way to, think about those things as we're developing. And I love that you guys like saw that that's something that, these business owners are really struggling with is, just this super simple thing that can get their product in front of more eyes. And you're like, okay, well, here's a quick and easy solution for you. How did you like make that realization and then actually develop the product?
Yeah. So first, I'm not a software girl. Okay. Like my husband right now, he's like, you've got to update the iOS. I'm like, the what? You haven't done the updates on your computer in like years, Dylan. Like it's going to break. And so I'm the girl who never runs updates on anything. I have no clue what apps are on my phone. I use like three important ones. The fact that like I founded a software company now is slightly unexpected. But after working with over 3,000 Etsy sellers as my students, I realized what is taking them so much time and really taking their focus off of driving their business forward, where they were getting stuck in the weeds. And, other than having me write out their SEO for them, what's the solution here? So this was really based on the needs of thousands of Etsy sellers that we experienced firsthand. And that was about 8 months ago. So we hired a development team. We have a team in the US and then another team overseas. And together we are working on this. There's a bunch of people who've kind of put it together. We've had so many different versions and iterations and testing for months. And it just launched 2 weeks ago.
That is so cool. I think that's amazing. And it goes back to like your entire business is based off of just listening to the needs that you hear and then creating solutions for them. And I think it's a great, opportunity to say, hey, this isn't really my thing, but I saw a need and I figured out a way to fulfill that by bringing on other team members who can support the things that maybe I'm not so great at.
Totally. Yeah. It's not that, I'm as passionate about software and coding, and I would break it if they let me play around in there, in the back end. So, but I saw a problem and this is a solution, and, being able to even be a visionary around things, you can get the right people in place to do the back end. And it's not that expensive to really put together. Like we didn't run any ads for this. And because it's such a solution focused product, and we knew the demand was going to be there, we have not done ads up until really this week. So, yeah.
Which is amazing since, you guys are launching this full product, like that's so amazing. Very cool that like you are kind of an all-in-one stop for these sellers to come and like obviously because you have this app that you're releasing, but you also do coaching yourself and you run your own shops too.
Yeah. So I would say with this, we wanted to really be a place to serve our customer through stages of their business. Just like we teach, if you have an Etsy shop, you want to serve your customer through stages of their life, not just be a one-time transaction. We wanted to look at how can we serve our customer and meet them where they're at for like, years, many years. So the same principles apply really in any business that you're running.
No, I think that's a great point that you want to be able to grow with your customer base. And it's very cool to hear you say that because I feel like sometimes as business owners, we get stuck in this idea of where we started is where we need to stay instead of allowing for that natural evolution, as we go through our lives, as our customers go through their lives, evolving our business with that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a fun journey, and it's fun to get to help people now. Yeah.
I love that. So as you've kind of like obviously grown and developed from those early stages of your business, and now you get to really like dive in and help new business owners on Etsy, like kind of establish themselves and grow themselves. What has that been like for you? And what are some of the biggest lessons that you have like learned yourself through that process?
Yeah, I would say, as a one woman show, you can only do so much. Like there's only 24 hours in a day. And yes, you can make a big impact as one person, But I think, if you have a vision, and if you have the ability to help more people, you are kind of shortchanging your potential if you don't build a team around yourself, because you're going to end up really exhausted, burned out, and not being able to make the full impact. And, I feel like what we're doing now, it's like everything we're doing, I feel like, okay, this is our calling here. This is like, we're meant to be doing this. And if we didn't hire people and didn't put the right people in the right places, like none of this would happen. Building the team has been, I think, one of the biggest mountains I've climbed over the last 18 months. Necessary, difficult, and no one really prepares you for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a scary, I think, move to, make somebody else reliant on you at that point. How did you actually make that decision? Like, okay, I'm making enough income that I can see this happening, but what if so many things could go wrong? How do you make that decision that you're like, yes, now's the time. I see that I need more people to be able to keep this growth, going from here.
Yeah, I think when the demand is more than you can even supply, right? There's more students that want to sign up, and I can't even fulfill the services for them. And that's a huge sign. But also your health. If you realize, wow, if I got sick and I had to take even a day off, if the whole machine would break, we've got a big problem. We also almost went through an acquisition, which they identified me as being kind of a key man risk, which means if I got hit by a bus, the value of the business would tank. So I'm really trying to build a business in a way where it could run without me. It's not planning on that. That opened my eyes to also what makes a business valuable, and being so many people and the whole business relying on you and you're being on your shoulders, it makes it much less valuable.
That's a really great point. And I think it is, like you said, really good to view from both an acquisition point, but also just a growth strategy as a business owner, and recognizing that as hard as it is to relinquish control, sometimes it's really necessary for the growth of our business.
Yeah, totally. It's hard, but it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. What other tips, tricks, tools do you have for a woman that's like, know that I want to step into this online selling space, but I'm not sure where to start or how to start?
Yeah. So I would say definitely it's worth having a conversation with someone who's done it. And if you don't have a friend or someone who's done it, or if you don't know anyone who's done it, we do offer free calls where you can learn more about what the process even looks like. So it's a free call with myself and my team, and we just like to chat with you about kind of the direction you want to take things, why you even want to have a business, and it just can help you also assess if Etsy is the right thing for you. So it's really helpful to talk to someone though. Otherwise, you are just watching YouTube videos and you could end up down a rabbit hole.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think that's so good. We talk about all the time that the free access to information all the time is both wonderful and horrible all at the same time, because sometimes it's so easy to get dragged into those rabbit holes and too much information.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, we do offer those calls if anyone would like to chat more. Or you can always message us on Instagram too, at Dylan Jahraus, if you want to know more about what does having an Etsy shop look like? Or, hey, this is my situation. Should I open a shop?
Yeah, that's so great. I love that. What programs and coaching do you have available for people if they are already established but really want to focus on the growth of their business?
Yeah. So we have an inner circle program, which is really for people who are doing, I'd say, at least $50,000 a month. We also have other one-on-one coaching programs where, it's unlimited one-on-one private coaching 24/7, even if you're not at that level, if you're just starting out. So no matter what level of your business, we have options for that.
I love it. You guys
Yeah.
really help start from brand new all the way up to massive sellers, which is great. I love that.
Yeah. It's fun. It keeps it exciting.
Yeah. Always getting to do something different. That's always fun. What are your plans from here?
So really scaling the software business, building out the team and helping more sellers. We have a new course about visibility coming out soon. And I'm just trying to give back and help people. I think this next 12 months is going to be kind of the next 12 months of entrepreneurship for a lot of Americans and I guess people all over the world as well. So just helping really kind of guide entrepreneurs in a stronger way.
I love that. And it sounds like your guys' software is going to be amazing and super helpful. I think anybody who is a business owner who has their own website or does any of those things recognizes what a problem SEO is. So that's so cool that you guys are doing that. Where do we find you personally and keep up with you and all the things that you're doing?
So the best way is Instagram at Dylan Jahraus or the YouTube channel, Dylan Jahraus. We have a lot of videos. We interact in the comments there as well. Or you can just check out our website, dylanjahraus.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Dylan. This was so good. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mompreneur Podcast. And if you like this episode as much as we did, give us a follow so we can invite you back every Wednesday. And of course, share it on all your socials. Being a confident mompreneur means uncovering your strengths and struggles so you can dive in and learn how your next steps could be your greatest.